I mentioned before our visionaries, so we've got about 120 from across the country, New Zealand, in every specialty of our profession. But because I was talking about childhood blindness, I thought it was a great opportunity to invite one of our paediatric ophthalmologists, one of our children's eye specialists up onto the stage. Kim was one of the very first on our reverse fellowship program. I think you were part of the program in Vietnam, which really launched our reverse fellowship program. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to invite Kim up onto the stage and just have a bit of a chat about his experience of being a Sight for All visionary. So Kim, what made you want to be an ophthalmologist in the first place?
I think starting from medicine, we all, anyone in the health profession, it's a real privilege to deal with people's health and work in any contribute to such a positive ethos from day to day. And touching through ophthalmology as a medical student and as a young resident, it really struck me as an area where I liked it, of course, but you really see a difference and you make a difference fairly dramatically. I think that by extension, I continue that onto paediatric ophthalmology, as your videos show. Making a difference at the start of life makes an even greater difference for the family and that individual throughout the patient's life. And it's just been a wonderful and fulfilling area of health to be involved in. Sight, as your videos very, very powerfully showed, is such a we take it for granted. It's such an important part of our lives, and the colour and the vibrancy is just we take for granted. And being as part of that sort of scheme to help people establish vision in childhood and give it back in adulthood is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then obviously the transition to becoming a Sight for All visionary was another part of your development of your career. What was it that appealed to you about what we were doing, and what gave you that connection with Sight for All in the first place?
You rang me.
I did ring you. I rang lots of people.
Well, you rang me and you explained to me what you're doing, and I'd done some work with College of Surgeons and a few other institutions, and that's very fulfilling and nice. But when you explained to me what your plan was, and this had come off the recent, I think, this is 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
There'd been this thrust for reversible childhood blindness by the World Health Organization, and you said we really need to be part of this to try and tackle this. Your ideas of finding the problem, which you've shown you did with the blindness studies, and then going there and trying to train someone, and we've been involved in training people here and in work in East Timor, for example, and it's great work you do there, but you do feel that you leave it alone and you help a small number of people. And your ideas of actually going there to continue the work and actually immerse yourself in that environment, teach at the same time, but also discover the barriers while you're there, is completely different from what everyone else is doing. And I think the recent experience, I've just been to Cambodia recently, and it's the third time I've been there, and you can see it from year to year, that progression, that you start something off, it was your blindness project which identified what the problems were. Over the last few years, measles has actually been tackled, 90+% they tell me. And the next on the list are things like retinopathy prematurity and childhood cataract. And you can see that they understand that only by going there, not just coming here and being taught and listening to lectures. They understand the problem, and we understand the problem much better by being there at the same time. You only actually get the hurdles and the problems by working with them and helping them get through those, or helping them show them where the problems are. And that's just been amazing to see over the last 5 or 6 years, the progression and the establishment of motivated, bright, three young doctors from Myanmar here, amazing young ophthalmologists who want to continue that work, and really that was your vision that started that, and that sucked me in. I'm sold.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, Kim was actually involved in our very first reverse fellowship program in Vietnam, I think it was, as you said, 5 or 6 years ago. And the beauty of what we do is we can identify problems as they present themselves. And one of the extraordinary things I found during that program, so it was the first time, so every visionary that would go would then send back a report, and then we could act on that report, which was fantastic. And one of the things which really struck me was they'd recently had an epidemic of rubella in Vietnam, in northern Vietnam, and there were all of these children who were blind from cataract caused by rubella. The doctors could remove the cataract, but they didn't actually give them a refractive solution, so they weren't putting the lenses back inside the eyes. And so the kids were essentially remaining blind, which was terribly distressing, and you probably saw a number of kids that were blind from that situation. So what then that allowed us to do was mobilise a team of optometrists who were specialised in fitting contact lenses in babies. So this is neonates, this is children in their first year of life. So we mobilised a team of specialists that could actually fit contact lenses in babies, and that was extraordinary. And I remember the very first optometrist that went, and she said to me it was incredible when they put a contact lens on a baby, and it was certainly was suddenly starting to see for the first time. So I think that the feedback that we get from our visionaries allows us to build on it and constantly improve what we're doing, which is a really exciting thing. Kim's now been to Vietnam and Laos and also Cambodia, and you recently returned from Cambodia, and Kim sent through a really exciting, positive feedback that he really is starting to see the fruit of the work that we're doing. Has there been any really moving, impactful experience that you've had during your trips with us?
All the time. I think there's patient experiences, but I think the most moving is seeing that the young doctor in Cambodia who started fairly naive to the problems 5 years ago, say, and she's very much understood the issues and the barriers and taken it with two hands and really tackled it at her own expense, but mostly with Sight for All's funding. And she's the retinopathy of premature I mentioned. She's doing the first screening for this problem in Cambodia. It's a problem which until 5 years ago they pretended didn't exist. It's an exploding problem of childhood blindness. It's up in the top few causes, and it's reversible. And she now treats more people than we do at the Women's Hospital by far. Right? So we go there for a week. Someone goes there for 6 weeks, and she's treating far more people than we do due to Sight for All's initiative. It's amazing.
And it is amazing when any of our visionaries go on these trips, we actually learn as much as we're teaching them, but we actually learn so much from them as well, and the experience is universally is amazing. You mentioned before there are a number of organisations that fly in, do surgery. It helps a small number of people, but our model is comprehensive and sustainable, the teacher man to fish model. Do you think that's really the answer to this problems?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's right. I think it is helpful having the fellows come here for a bit of experience, but in the past, my involvement has been training people here and going to ICAM, say, and operating on a small number of people. And you always felt like you're dropping the ball a bit when you left, and it's rewarding for those patients, and what comes next is a bit unknown. I think this idea of us going there is infinitely better. As I said, there's the only way you understand the problems inherent. It's hard to explain, but just for those who are non-medical, non-ophthalmological in the room, childhood blindness is a problem. If you don't tackle the problem early, there's no point in doing it later. So if you go and operate on a cataract in an 8-year-old, which has been there since birth, they don't see any better. And so one of the barriers is not, obviously teaching them how to do the surgery and refract them afterwards, but if you don't actually work out how to pick up that cataract in the first place, I think you only really discover that by going there and working there. So if they come here and had the same training for a year around Australia, they might learn the technical skill, but we don't actually help them with where the heart of the problem is. And I think that's the one big difference that you've enabled. One, understanding the problem, but tackling that. But it is it is a worry, because every time you leave that week or 10 days, you do wonder what happens next, and they need this ongoing support, and it's not just financial, it's political, and it's educational. And I think Sight for All definitely provides that. They have free access to all the visionaries who go there. We all stay in email contact. We all meet the ministers of health, surprisingly casually in the hospital, and try and convey the barriers and where to next, and tackle the problems. But when you go away, you wonder what happens next. And I think you realise that they have a very limited resource in their environment, and they have political intrigues that we don't understand, and the difference that we do is we make sure that they get what they need. For your Vietnam example is, I've been to 3 countries, Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, and they're at very different stages of tackling childhood blindness. Vietnam, for example, is much more advanced in equipment, but they don't have that sort of support that you're giving them now. Whereas Cambodia, they have that understanding in the patients, but they still need a lot of problems with anaesthetic support, with ongoing training, and we need to stay involved, and they're very short of equipment. And Laos, unfortunately, is another step behind, right? And you realise that support with functions like this and time given for, and all sorts of aspects of the health and the system is what they need, and they need to keep going. If it doesn't keep going, it'll just stop. You can see how there's just too many barriers, there's too many needs in the health system, and it gets confusing. We need to push this hard.
I mean, there's work for us for decades, isn't there? It's I'd like to say it's not insurmountable, because I think we are.
Oh, absolutely.
Surmounting
You see a difference now, a big difference, James.
So, it was great, the fact that you've been to some of these countries multiple times, and each time you are seeing the improvement, and ultimately that's what we want to see, and that's the feedback. When we get that feedback, it makes us feel that we're doing something and we're doing it right. And so I'd like to thank him, firstly for being a visionary, dedicating his time and expertise, and also for coming and speaking us to tonight. So thank you, Kim.